So it was cool. It's like, oh, I'm hanging out with Rob Zombie, and he's covered with tattoos, but on one of his wrists he's got a Jack Kirby thing tattoo. So yeah, I was like, not only is it a, amongst all the other stuff, there's a comic book character, but it's the Thing, which is one of my favorites, and it's a Jack Kirby. So it's not only is it the Thing, but it's the right thing,
By the way, I just quickly have to ask you, I love heavy metal music and I love horror movies, which puts Rob Zombie as like the perfect personification of the two things that I love. What was it like working with him on Halloween 2?
It was cool. I mean, it was because I did House of a Thousand Corpses and then I did Halloween 2. Fortunately, Wayne Toth, who does all of his makeup shows and he does a lot of his stage shows, Wayne and I have been buddies for years. It's like lately, it's like I tend to mainly just work with my friends. So it's like I'm having a good time regardless, But House, I was kind of on the outside looking in. I just came in to do the big burn guy. So I was there sporadically, and Rob was nice enough, but there was no reason for us really to engage because Wayne, I was always there, working with Wayne. On 2, we were on location. We hung out just more. I was kind of on the inner circle at that point. So like we'd go to movies together, we'd go to dinner together. Our trailer was kind of because him and Wayne were such old friends. If the bullshit of the day was getting too much and Rob needed to go somewhere to get away from everything, he would come hang out in our trailer. So, we'd sit there and, so it was cool. It's like, oh, I'm hanging out with Rob Zombie. And he's covered with tattoos, but on one of his wrists, he's got a Jack Kirby Thing tattoo. So yeah, I was like, not only is it amongst all the other stuff, there's a comic book character, but it's the Thing, which is one of my favorites, and it's a Jack Kirby. So it's not only is it the Thing, but it's the right thing, So that impressed me. I remember we were telling some jokes about something once, and he like beat me to my punchline, because he was like he anticipated my. So I guess we had similar sense of humor in that regard. But it was cool that he was. You could tell he's a fan. I mean, regardless of how you feel about his movies, and I think some have been more successful than others. At least I think his heart's in the right place, and I think he's like his Lords of Salem was. He's trying to do like a 70s vibe, movie as opposed to like regardless of what you feel about like his Monsters thing, at least his heart was in the right place. And which I remember when the Monsters came out, like somebody took the trailer and released it in black and white. And just that was like, wow, this is like, I'd much rather see this in black and white than, than in color. But it's cool that, I mean, he is a fan first. And I think, he's coming at these things from the right perspective, from being a fan and trying to I mean, he's trying to do his spin on it, but I think he's doing it with respect and stuff like that, kind of like Peter Jackson's King Kong. I mean, I got issues with it, but at least at the core you can tell that he's a fan of the original.
Cool.
Very nice guy, and so good time. Those are good memories. When I was on Hellboy 2, Neil Gaiman was visiting the set because he was flirting with directing. So he was kind of shadowing Guillermo and just getting some tips and advice and whatever. And at some point I'm like, up by the monitor, kind of checking out the shot. And Neil Gaiman, big fan. And somehow we start talking about Jack Kirby's The Demon. And like, he's a huge Demon fan. And I'm like, so we're just like, Kirby. And finally Guillermo was like, guys, be quiet. He's like, I'm trying to, so I was like, oh, sorry, Neil. I hope I didn't get you in trouble with Guillermo, but, so again, it's just cool when you get to meet these, guys that you're fans of, and then you find out you've got similar interests and, and that kind of stuff. So,
of course. Behind you, I see, all these relics of comics that you love and movies that you love. And if one day they publish a book, the work of Bart Mixon, compilation of 5 of your most definitive works, which 5 movies should be in that book?
That's a darn good question. I mean, certainly It, just because, again, like we've gone over before, that's fairly unique in that was my vision, that was me. Probably RoboCop I'd want to include in there, because that was certainly like a major, turning point. And kind of, even though I'd worked on like Elm Street 2 and Chainsaw 2, Robo was like the first, kind of like big, even though it wasn't a huge movie, but it was certainly like a step up. And it just turned out to be, I think it's one of the best movies of the 80s, just across the board, like it and The Thing, maybe the first, Hellboy, and maybe throw in like a Men in Black 3.
Any of the Marvel movies?
Well, I mean, again, like I think Infinity War was, because I'm pretty much all over that. I mean, the Vision's in that a lot, whereas Fright Night 2, I think, is kind of underrated, and it got kind of a bad shake because the distributor was murdered by his sons, before the movie came out. I don't know if you remember, I don't know, it may not have made it in the news that much over there, but there were the Menendez brothers. If you look them up sometime, when it was on the news at the time, it's just like, oh, they just murdered their parents, and their dad was like a movie executive. And then come to find out later, it's like he was the head of the company that was releasing Fright Night 2. And that's why Fright Night 2 did not get a proper theatrical release, was because these guys had killed him. So had they put off murdering him for another year, then I think Fright Night 2 would have been a big hit.
Gaze into the abyss.